All right, my vibe coders. No, I'm just kidding. Today, I want to talk about vibe coding for somebody who has written code manually for over 8 years in various roles. I believe this is something we need to talk about. I'll give you my predictions and where I think vibe coding will end up and what this does for software engineers. All right, so the first thing we have to do is level set. Anybody who doesn't know what vibe coding is essentially where you just sit back, relax, let your AI, your cursor AI, your windsurf just write the code for you. You do a bunch of, natural language prompts, and you essentially just blindly hit accept on those prompts as the code editor writes the code for you. That's essentially what vibe coding is. You're just chilling with the vibes, taking in all the good vibes, and just letting the code editor do its thing and build you out something great. So with this strategy of vibe coding, there's been plenty of things that have actually came out pretty good. Like, you have people with zero coding knowledge making whole SaaS products. They're building whole games, and they're making money from strictly vibe coding and not having to know anything about coding whatsoever. Just hop in, grab one of these AI tools, AI code editors, and be able to code something up, deploy it, and have a full functioning product, and not having to do any of the work of actually learning to code and how it works. That is all great. However, I believe that this vibe coding is taken to the extreme as far as what you may see is a bunch of the good things, which, don't get me wrong, it has a time and place, I guess, but there's actually massive problems with vibe coding that I don't think is being shared enough. And I've looked on social media and I've seen a couple different things of different vibe coders and the different problems that they're having. So I'm going to name a few of these. So I see that vibe coded applications can, whether this is also in the context of if somebody's even sharing or not, right, their actual issues. But I've seen many of these vibe coders have massive vulnerabilities in their applications, stuff like maxed out API keys, people being able to just bypass essentially the subscription or the paywall feature of the application, and just random stuff ending up in their databases and all these types of things. Now, with that being said, with you having zero coding knowledge, you can see where the problem lies, because these individuals that are making this and experiencing these problems, and there's plenty more problems, that's just a few, they have no idea how to fix these issues. So what is their next step? They have a couple next steps. They either get rid of the product completely and shut it down, right? They hire somebody. Who would that be? A software engineer to come in, fix, redesign, rework, completely remake, which, as you know, is going to cost. The same thing as you essentially learning the skill. That's like time versus money. You can pay somebody to do it, or you can learn the skill and actually correct it yourself and all that, which is a steep learning curve. But if you're someone who actually knows what software engineering is, you know that coding isn't the actual hard part of the job itself. There's a lot of other vital aspects of software engineering and what it consists of, which is what these vibe coders are essentially just bypassing and being able to get to a finished product. They're not thinking about things like system design, gathering requirements, and doing all the little things, architecting a whole solution so that it's maintainable, scalable, and if things need to be changed or altered, you can do that faster and more efficiently because you have a code base that you understand. And now we're gonna get into my thoughts and predictions with vibe coding. So honestly, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm just sitting here and I haven't gave it a little whirl, go into my cursor AI and just, hey, I wanna build this and just accept the prompt. Oh, error, accept the prompt. I've done it. I've tried to, vibe code. I've seen it. It is very intriguing because as humans, we're lazy. So why wouldn't I want to go ahead and build something from the ground up with having to do the least amount of work as possible, right? So with something small, with a few prompts, I don't see a huge issue if you're just trying to create something, especially something locally, right? You're just trying to do something locally and you got something going on and you want to vibe code that, or just give it a couple prompts to kind of get you where you need to go, something you're kind of using for yourself. I don't really see the harm in that, honestly. I've done that. However, what I have seen, I've been on the side of the scale, and then I've also tried to make something very complex, and it's created a huge code base, and I realized that I don't actually know what the hell is going on in my code base. Like, I don't know where to do the next thing. I don't know how to add a feature if I wanted to. It's just essentially a whole jumbled mess of code that I don't understand why it was put there, why it was done in that fashion. So when I try to add something, I usually have to rework a whole section, where sometimes it would be better just to rewrite the whole thing, because it would make me more productive and efficient in the long run. All right. But when you actually like manually code something, you have a mental image on how things are built and where things are. And once you have that underlying context of the code base, it really allows you to be more productive and faster as a software engineer. What I realized is, as I was vibe coding and as these things were super large and I had no context of what's going on in the code base, I felt so dumb that like I did not know what was going on with my own code base. I did not know anything and where anything was, why it was constructed that way, because I took all the critical thinking and decision making out of the whole project, which is where I see the biggest problem with vibe coding. Applications are being spun up with terrible architecture, vulnerabilities, and things like that, because that person that's making it has no idea how this LLM is actually architecting, structuring it, or anything like that. So do I think vibe coding is going anywhere? I don't think that it's going anywhere. I think it will evolve eventually. I don't know where that is per se, but I think that individuals will start to see these things happening. There will be less of maybe pure vibe coding, and maybe, you know, there will be some level of knowledge of coding going into it, or software engineering, I should say, and how to architect. I mean, I feel like that's the best way to use these AI tools, is to have that base understanding and really know how things are architected and doing all of these different things. And then you as a software engineer essentially directing the LLM very specifically on what to do, how to do it, and where to do it. And I think that's a better use of vibe coding. It's a better use of AI because it's not vibe coding, it's not the same. So I think that that's where that's gonna go for software engineering. Like I made in a previous video, I don't think that this AI situation or even vibe coding will do anything to software engineers. If anything, it will make software engineers more valuable, in the sense of now these startups or these SaaS products are going to need a software engineer to fix these terrible applications, which is going to essentially be more business, or it's going to have these people essentially have to, you know, shut down their product or whatever it may be. So I just think of it as an evolution to software engineering and things like freelancing and those types of things. If vibe coding continues to happen, I'm not on board with vibe coding just as like a pure skill, if you want to call it a skill. I think it's a fun thing to do, and like I said, it's cool to do like on an internal project or whatever, but as far as like you actually being able to do real things, you will, but then there's a risk of all of these different vulnerabilities, which would probably end up costing you more in the long run than what you actually make off the product or whatever it is that's, you know, you're making money from. So with that being said, this is my take on vibe coding and where it's going to essentially stand. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I'll see you on the next one.